Hey everybody, it's Chris from Chris Beat Cancer, and today I'm super excited because my guest is Dr. Michael Greger. Dr. Michael Greger is a physician, author, and internationally recognized speaker. He is an expert on nutrition, food safety, and public health issues. He's a founding member and fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and he currently serves as a public health director at the Humane Society. Dr. Greger is also the founder of nutritionfacts.org, which is a non-commercial, science-based website that has free videos every day on the latest nutrition research. And Dr. Greger makes these really terrific bite-sized videos that will basically educate you on nutritional science. It's really awesome. There's hundreds of videos on the site, and I'm a huge fan of Dr. Greger and his work. Now, in those of you who know my story, in 2003 I was diagnosed with cancer. I had surgery, and it was colon cancer, and I was told I needed 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy, and I chose nutrition instead of chemotherapy, and the cancer didn't come back. I prevented a recurrence. I got well. Here I am 12 years later, and at the time I didn't have any nutritional science to go by. I had a handful of books written by people who had healed their cancers, and that was it. And that was all I had. And of course, they were promoting plant-based diet and juicing and eating tons of fruits and vegetables, mostly raw. And that's what I did. And so fast forward to about 2010 or 11, I found Dr. Greger and Nutrition Facts, his website. And it was just such an exciting discovery for me, because what I had believed to be true about the power of nutrition to help prevent and reverse chronic diseases like cancer and heart disease and things like that. What I felt and believed in my heart was true. I was now seeing someone was pulling all this scientific studies and data and all kinds of good stuff together, and for me to consume. So anyway, let me finish Dr. Greger's intro with this. He is also now a New York Times best-selling author. So his latest book is How Not to Die. Here's that book, and congratulations, Dr. Greger, and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Now, are you at your treadmill desk?
Of course, always 17 miles a day.
That's great. So, talk about the treadmill desk. Let's just start with that.
It is not healthy to sit all day.
Okay.
So there's not only benefits of physical activity, there are adverse effects of physical inactivity, even if you go out and, you work out an hour a day after work. Sitting 6 or more hours a day significantly increases mortality independent of exercise. So you say, well, yeah, I sit all day, but I pound the gym an hour a day, 7 days a week, doesn't matter. Still increases your mortality risk. Of course, it matters. I mean, any exercise is better than no exercise, but sitting is an independent risk factor for premature death. So, I try not to be a hypocrite and, follow where the science leads. And so I saw that, and I was like, all right. So I started do the standing desk, and I said, well, if I'm just going to stand here, I might as well move a little bit. So, it appears to be due to endothelial function. So the endothelium is the inner lining of our blood vessels. And just like to use it or lose it with anything else in our body, whether it's our skeleton wasting away if we don't get weight-bearing exercise, or if our muscles wasting away if we're in a cast or something, or laid up in bed. Well, the inner lining of our blood vessels is actually, it's kind of invigorated by the shear force of the blood moving past. And so when our blood just stagnates in our lower limbs, and you don't have that kind of that blood flow, our endothelium becomes dysfunctional, and so that's why we have to keep moving.
Yeah, that's great. I've wanted a stand-up desk for years and considered a treadmill desk. What's the brand you like?
Oh, they're all way too expensive. What you do is you go to your local thrift store. I mean, thrift stores are just packed with exercise equipment, right? Because people get it for the holidays and then ditch it, right? And so you get a cheapo treadmill, you stick it on some cheap plastic shelving, and poof, you're done. Super cheap and easy.
Great.
And look, a standing desk is your desk and a milk crate and your laptop on top. Like, it's seriously that easy. So Yep. No excuse, people.
No excuse. That's great. Well, standing desk is on. It's on my to-do list for a few years, and I just need to just get one. It's great.
Yeah, it's just the only, I mean, just learning from my experience. It's good to stand in kind of a yoga mat kind of thing. So otherwise your feet can hurt after prolonged standing. And if you're going to be walking lots, you want to have good footwear. And if you're going to walk a really lot, you want to, take it slow and consider some maybe, so, making, if your knees start to hurt, you should take it easy.
That's good advice. That's good advice. And just to bookend this, the quote that's been circulating for maybe a year or two, maybe longer, is that sitting is the new smoking. I know you've heard that.
Yeah, I might not go that far, but sitting's not good for you.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I'd like to start with your backstory because I think it's terrific, and I've interviewed several other nutrition MDs, and I would love to know what happened in your life that maybe diverted you from a traditional MD track to a nutritionally minded MD.
Yeah, well, it was all my grandma, really. So, I mean, that's what I start out the book with, kind of my story. I was only a kid when, doctor sent my grandma home in a wheelchair to die. She had already she had end-stage heart disease, basically. Had so many open bypass surgeries. She basically run out of plumbing at some point. You get all scarred up inside. Nothing more they could do. Crushing chest pain, confined in a wheelchair, sent her home. Age 65, her life was over. And then she was watching 60 Minutes on TV, and they profiled this dude named Nathan Pritikin, this early lifestyle medicine pioneer who just opened this new clinic out in California. She somehow made the cross-country track, and she's actually featured as one of his early success stories in his biography. And it talks about Frances Greger. I didn't learn later in life that she was actually mentioned. It was so cool. They wheeled her in, and she walked out. They put her on a plant-based diet, a graded exercise program. A few weeks she was walking 10 miles a day, went on to live another 31 years on this planet till age 96, inspiring one of her 6 grandkids to not only go to medical school, but lived long enough to see him graduate. So that's why I'm a doctor and why I practice the kind of lifestyle medicine I practice to today.
And you learned most of the nutritional science in med school, correct?
God forbid, no. My God. So I went to the school that had the most nutrition training. It was about 20 hours out of thousands of hours preclinical instruction. It's really quite sad. Our diet is number one cause of death in the United States, number one cause of disability in the United States, according to the Global Burden of Disease Study, the most extensive study of risk factors to date. And so obviously it's the number one thing taught in medical school, right? Wrong, and that's for a whole variety of reasons, including the role the pharmaceutical industry plays in physician education. Ask your doctor when's the last time they got taken out to lunch by Big Broccoli, and that'll give you the answer.
That's right. Yeah, there was a study that just came out this week. I imagine you might have seen it. It was published in Nature. And the conclusion of this study was that 70 to 90% of cancers are caused by diet, lifestyle, and environmental factors. And I shared this with my audience, with my subscribers, and most of them were very excited about this, and because they're saying, "Yeah, we know this. It's more evidence that diet matters, that our choices matter, and lifestyle choices, obviously." But there was a small contingent of people that were really upset by it and accused me of blaming the victim. What's your take on that?
I'm looking for the paper right now. Do you know, what was the title?
Oh, well, you got to give me a second to find that. Let's see.
All right, well, you send me the link, right?
Yeah.
Will you please?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the flip side. So, it's this tremendously optimistic message that we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity. That's amazing news. I mean, like 80% of premature death and disability completely preventable by lifestyle. That's amazing. The flip side, though, is holy shit. That's a lot of responsibility. Like, what we feed our kids could kill them, could give them diabetes, could cut their life short. What we feed ourselves, our family members, could kill them, cut their life short, give them diabetes. Oh, that's okay. Now, it's nice. There's certainly diseases that can be reversed. But, in many cases, like sudden cardiac death, too late by the time you figure it out. Look, not all cases, even if it's just 10% genetics, right? 10% of cases, nothing you did, you can prevent it. And look, even if it's environmental, doesn't mean you can prevent it.
Right.
So air pollution, risk factor for lung cancer. You got to breathe.
Right.
Right? God, you should see my speaking schedule. Every time you go into the atmosphere on an airplane, you're exposed to cosmic rays from the universe, essentially. One, back and forth New York to LA is basically getting a chest x-ray. Okay, Jesus, I should be glowing in the dark by now. So, look, so that's an environmental risk factor. And I certainly do have some control of it, just like we have control every time we get in our car and risk our life and limb driving. At the same time, it's not like, Now, but look, there are some things that we have total control. What we put in our mouth, most of us have total control of what they put in their mouth. And so we just have to maximize the control we have in our lives. So look, if you get cancer, is it your fault? Some of it may be.
If you're a smoker, I think if you're a smoker, we could probably make that argument.
So about 90% of lung cancer risk is smoking. If you're a smoker, then probably about 90% of the responsibility for your lung cancer is yours. Now, having said that, a lot of the people dying from lung cancer now were addicted and hooked on a drug when the American Medical Association was saying smoking was good for you.
Yeah.
When the government was, when everybody was, when most doctors in this country smoked. It was until the 1960s when the Surgeon General's report came out, all right? So it's like they didn't know better, and then you're addicted to nicotine, and so is it your responsibility? Yes, but it's, anyone who smoked or had a heroin addiction or on down the list, there are real, there's biological drives that are difficult to, undermine.
Before I comment on that, the name of the study is Substantial Contribution of Extrinsic Risk Factors to Cancer Development. And I'll send you a link to it, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes too for everybody watching and listening. But we
there
were
it
talking about
is.
smoking.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we were just talking about smoking, and I interviewed Dr. McDougall recently, and he and I had a similar discussion where he mentioned the physician that the first physician to come out and say smoking was causing cancer. What a controversy that was, and that I forget his name escapes me. Maybe you remember.
Michael DeBakey in the 1930s was one of the first to show the links.
Okay, and they were studying the Japanese and looking at Japanese smokers versus American smokers. There were some researchers, I believe, in the 50s, and they found that the Japanese smokers had a much lower risk of cancer versus American smokers, which indicated that the diet was protective, or their diet,
or some other factor, right?
Yeah, or some other factor. So we're exposed to a lot of environmental pollution that we can't help and can't control. Do you believe diet is protective, or can be?
It's protective against
potential risk factors from environmental pollution or toxins?
Of course. So for example, we know air pollution is a leading risk factor for something like asthma. But more powerful risk factors, diet. Actually, what put in your mouth, because this is an inflammatory disease, and so you need to eat anti-inflammatory foods. and you pack the lung lining fluid with antioxidants, and you reduce your risk no matter what you're exposed to on the outside. Look, eating healthy is always a good idea. Even if it doesn't directly affect, so someone will come to me with some really rare condition and say, does diet help against this? And, I may say I have no idea, or I look it up and there's no studies. Either way, there's just no studies. And so I say, but you still, so I'm saying, look, there's no data, but you still got to eat healthy. Why? Because the last thing you need if you got one disease is two diseases, right? Even if it doesn't help that one disease, which is unusual because what we eat basically determines who we are. Literally, physically, we are what we eat, right? All our cells essentially are replaced about every year. What are they replaced with? Air, water, sunshine, food, right?
Yep.
So even if it doesn't help your particular disease, so for example, let's say you have a cancer that isn't affected by diet. Okay, you still, if you choose to undergo chemoradiation, it can decrease the side effects, right? It can make you feel better while you're dying from cancer. There's like what? In what universe would eating healthy not be a good idea at all time?
Yeah. Well,
right?
And I want to make sure that people watching and listening understand what kind of diet we're talking about, because you're talking about a low-carb paleo diet, correct?
I'm talking about a whole food, plant-based diet.
Okay. So there's been a lot's maybe the wrong descriptor here, but there's certainly people in the world that are saying that beans and grains are bad for you. They're unhealthy. What does the scientific literature say about this?
There are people saying that Twinkies are good for you, namely the Twinkie manufacturers. But look, the science is very clear on whole grains. The science is very clear on legumes. Legumes, which is beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, the single best dietary predictor for survival among older people around the world. You want to know how long the population...
What does that mean? That you're saying that is the number one healthiest food for old people to be eating?
Well, I'm saying that if you look at studies of populations, what's correlated best with longevity is how many beans they eat. If you want to know how long a population eats, the best question to ask, you could ask, hey, well, how many vegetables do they eat? How many, how much sugar do they eat? No, the number one dietary predictor would be, the best question to ask would be how many legumes are they eating?
Yeah.
And that would give you your best sense.
So, how many legumes are they eating?
I recommend what the American Institute for Cancer Research suggests, which is 3 servings a day. Serving defined as a quarter cup of hummus or a half cup of beans or like a cup of sprouted lentils. So beans every meal, that's the ideal, right? You say, wait a second, beans for breakfast? Yeah, the Brits do it. In India, they have these little idli, which are kind of fermented lentil cakes. In Japan, they have miso soup for breakfast. Beans.
South America, too?
There we go. So beans 3 times a day, or legumes 3 times a day.
I love beans. So.
Wonderful. Beans love you.
Yes. Can you talk about the research you did with Ilacor B?
Ha ha! Amazing stuff, I tell you. So this was the lecture I gave to medical students many moon ago. I talked about this amazing new therapeutic Ilacor B. And, I showed these studies showing it does just amazing stuff in multi-organ systems. So, yes, it helps the liver, it helps the brain, it helps against cancers. Just crazy stuff. And so everyone's ready to find out which pharmaceutical company makes this so they can buy stock and retire rich people. And then I apologize for my dyslexia, people. And then flip it around on the screen. Of course, that's broccoli spelled backwards. And I go back to all the studies, say, no, this is actually about broccoli. And making the point that if people, if there was a drug that could do what broccoli did, they would be making billions of dollars. Every insurer on the planet would be forced to pay for the drug, no matter how much it costs, because it's just so powerful. But when that drug is eat your greens, people are like, yeah. They don't realize the power.
If you had, I want to ask you a couple fun questions.
All right.
First one is, do you miss your beard?
I actually like it without. You know what? It's the feeling of like a pillow on my face. It's so nice. Like, I don't know. Like, I went all this time not really feeling my face. It actually feels nice. So I'm gonna stick with it.
Back
Even
to the
though-
baby face.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a pain. You know, I waste about 2 minutes a day that I could be putting out new videos, shaving, but I like the feeling.
That's great.
Still chilly though. This is my first winter
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm
without
sure
insulation. Yeah, I know. We'll
Okay.
see how it goes.
So if you were stranded on a deserted island
Yes.
and you only had one type of food to eat,
Yes.
what would that be?
Water. Otherwise, you're dead.
Well, water doesn't count.
Hey.
You have water. You have water.
What? So I've got fresh water.
Yes, you got fresh water.
All right. I know. So even though the healthiest food is something like kale, there's just simply not enough calories, so you die of starvation. So probably sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
So sweet potatoes have a lot of nutrition, but lots of calories, so you wouldn't die of scurvy. You'd eat a lot of sweet potatoes, get enough protein. Yeah, so probably sweet potatoes are like the one food you could live off. There's a bunch of foods you could do,
Yeah,
but yeah.
Sweet
Yeah, I'd probably go that way.
that's great. That would be my pick too. Okay,
Yep.
so expanding on that, if you had
Yep.
to pick 3 meals
Yeah.
to eat every day for the rest of your life, breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
Yeah.
what would those be? Can you describe those?
Well, so breakfast, a good healthy breakfast is, oatmeal with, berries and nuts, maybe some cinnamon on top. And what's a good healthy lunch? Beans and greens are the healthiest food, so it'd be some like, I don't know, like colored green wrap, beans, like a burrito kind of thing with a collard green wrap. Yeah, whatever I could stuff inside. And then, so I have this whole kind of daily dozen thing that I introduce in the book. I'm
Yeah.
sure I haven't hit them all yet. But then, so obviously I have to fit all the things that I advise on the daily dozen, like the quarter teaspoon of turmeric and blah, blah, blah. But assuming I hit all those, a good evening meal, I don't know. It's got to have beans and greens, we got to get 3 servings of whole grains in every day. So maybe we put we already did the oatmeal for breakfast. For lunch, we could have put some brown rice in that burrito. For the evening, we can have some, I don't know, quinoa or whole grain pasta or something. Yeah, I like kind of Italian food. So maybe some whole grain pasta with some beans, tomato sauce, piles and piles of veggies on top, mushrooms, lots of garlic and onions, and herbs and spices. I'm getting hungry now.
I haven't had breakfast either, so yeah, you're making me hungry too. So, I know there are a lot of people that are interested in eating healthy, that are making transition into eating healthier, eating more fruits and vegetables, more plants, less animal food. When I look at when I've read books like the Blue Zones and look at some of these population studies, and even the China study, we know that none of the healthiest populations in the world are 100% purely vegan, but they eat a plant-based diet. I mean, it's mostly plants. So, in your opinion, or based on the research you've seen, what is the maximum allowable amount of animal foods that would not be detrimental?
Okay, well, so the longest living population on Earth doesn't eat meat at all, right? These are the vegetarian 7-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California, a fraction of which are vegan. But
they eat eggs and dairy products, right?
Well,
I said eggs. I meant to say eggs.
There are some. Some of the 7-day Adventists are vegan, but we don't have good longevity stats on vegans versus vegetarians in terms of the Adventists. But the Adventists do study. Will let us know in 10 years we should have a kind of a better sense. But yeah, so, you know, in second longest living population, probably the Okinawa Japanese, what, like a 97% plant-based diet.
Yeah.
I mean, the important thing, where that dividing line is, we're not sure. It's really what you eat on a kind of week-to-week basis. Doesn't matter whether you're in the holidays or birthday or something like that. But there is some interesting data. So two things. So one, there was a study done on the Adventists on lapsed vegetarians. So these are people who were vegetarian, then started eating meat, defined as once a week or more, had dramatic increases in chronic disease risk. So about 50% increased risk, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, more than 200% increased risk in weight gain, and cut their lifespan in the next 12 years by an average of 3.6 years, chopping years off your life if you start eating meat.
So that's just to be clear, that's people who went from vegetarian diet to
Right.
eating a little bit of meat.
Well, eating meat defined as once a week or more. So that was the definition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which could have been a lot more. It could have been 3 times a day for some
Yeah, no, it
people,
could have
right?
been. Right. So in terms of the dividing line, probably the best study was done in Taiwan. So compared two groups eating traditional Asian diets. So both were eating kind of whole foods, no soda intake, for example, no processed foods. So they're eating very healthy diets. But so they wanted to compare those who are kind of strictly plant-based with those who ate meat. On average, I think the women ate meat once a week. Men ate one serving of meat every 3 days. So the men had 5% the meat intake in the U.S., and I think the women had 3% of the intake of U.S. women. So
a fraction. Well, I'm way less.
One serving of meat every few days or once a week.
Yeah.
And they had dramatically higher diabetes rates compared to those who ate just a little bit meat less, meaning no meat at all.
Mm-hmm.
So there really did seem to be kind of a huge difference. And the vegans in the group had no diabetes at all. I mean, there wasn't a case, so they couldn't even do the statistics. But so it's data like that, which, you know, does suggest. So look, any movement we can make towards eating healthier, even if it's meatless Mondays, cutting out processed meat, lots of things we can do to improve our health. And you know, the Adventist studies show that you go from meat eating to flexitarian to pesco-vegetarian to ovo-lacto to vegan, you get stepwise drop in diabetes risk, hypertension risk, obesity risk, all the way along the spectrum. It's not black or white. You know, benefits accrue any way we can eat towards eating healthy, but there really does seem, even way at the fringes of almost entirely plant-based, to go even more plant-based, you still appear to accrue benefits, which is really remarkable.
So, according to the law of diminishing returns, you're saying that there aren't any diminishing returns that they've identified.
Well, I mean, at least, now look, if you did one serving of meat a month versus none, I don't know if you'd find any difference. I was surprised they found a difference with once a week.
Yeah, that's surprising.
I mean, you'd figure that your body could bounce back from that. Like whatever, like if you're eating healthy 6 2/3 days a week, I'm surprised that even one could do it. So I would be really surprised if once a month, but who knows? We'll have to see. I'll keep an eye out and see if a study like that's ever done.
That's awesome. Okay, last question. Coming full circle, back to your grandmother. What can you describe her diet? The diet that Pritikin put her on that reversed her heart disease.
So, the Pritikin diet is a perfect example of what I was talking about. So it's a plant-based diet, meaning a diet centered around whole plant foods, but it wasn't strictly vegan. None of the Pritikin, and even, Ornish calls his diet vegan. He adds fish oil, so I don't think, most vegans would not consider a diet that contains fish oil to be a vegan diet.
Yeah.
But it was a plant-based diet. So it was, so unlike kind of an Esselstyn diet, which really is strictly vegan, Pritikin was able to reverse heart disease with just a plant-based, non-strictly vegan diet. Again, showing that it's not black and white for prevention and even for treatment, which is remarkable.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is all should be really good news for everybody, that we can have tremendous, power over our health destiny, and we just have to do it.
Just have to do it. Okay, I said that was the last question, but you're forcing me to ask one more. I cannot help myself. May I ask you one more?
Please.
So you mentioned Esselstyn,
Yeah.
and I wanted to know your opinion on oils, because I know there's some differences of opinion on the amount of oils that would be healthy or not healthy in the diet.
Yeah, I don't think there's much difference of opinion.
Okay, so what is it then?
None.
No oils. So you're in the no oils.
It's processed food. It's processed food, right? Is there a nutritionist on the planet that thinks processed food is good for you? Better than whole foods? Yeah. So are there benefits to walnut oil or something? Are there good things in walnut oil? Yeah, but a walnut has all the benefits of the walnut oil plus all the fiber and minerals and all the other stuff, right? Whole foods are better than processed foods. Eat the whole foods, right? I mean, It's like, so oil is the table sugar of the fat kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so it's like you take a sugar beet, super healthy, you remove all the nutrition and you just get the sugar, right? You take a walnut or whatever,
An olive, yeah.
and you take all the nutrition out, most of the nutrition. There's still some oil, fat soluble, there's some vitamin E, blah, blah, blah left, but you take out all the fiber, you take out all the water soluble nutrients, right? It's like, why would you do that? You're missing out on nutrition. It's not just about plant-based, it's about whole food, plant-based.
That's fantastic. Well, Dr. Greger, thank you so much. Thanks for taking time out of your day to do this interview. And everybody, look, this is the book. This is my favorite book of 2015.
Woohoo!
This is it. And I hope I know a lot of my readers have bought this book, because the day it came out, I sent an email. I was like, this book is out. Go get it. So, but anyway, if you haven't bought it yet, buy it for yourself. Buy it for people that you care about. And the great thing about this book is the way that Dr. Greger laid it out is it's basically in 2 sections. But the first section, each chapter describes a different disease and all of the dietary, nutritional science related to preventing and reversing that disease. So there's a chapter 1 is how not to die from heart disease. There's a chapter how not to die from kidney disease and other diseases, cancers and things too. So you don't have to read it straight through. You can read it out of order. And then the second half is all his nutrition advice and how to make practical changes into your life and diet. It's really great. And frankly, the most fascinating thing about this book is, the 140 pages of references in the back, right?
Well,
how many citations is it?
Part I like, but I don't know. Yeah, that's tough reading. The last 140 pages.
Yeah. So there's a lot. I mean, this is a massive volume of awesomeness.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Greger. Everybody watching, subscribe to my channel. Make sure you visit nutritionfacts.org. That's Dr. Greger's just awesome video site. Of course, he has a YouTube channel. They're on YouTube as well. And we'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching, and thanks for doing this, Dr. Greger.
Keep up the good work.
You too. See you soon.
See ya.